Thanks for joining me again. We passed mid-October with little progress made on ending the federal government shutdown. What's happening in Washington defies common sense. The Trump administration and congressional Republicans are refusing to sit down and negotiate. That refusal has real consequences for families and communities nationwide, including Montgomery County. Federal workers at Health and Human Services and the National Institutes of Health are being told that they're out of a job in the middle of a shutdown. That action is both illegal and irrational. These are the same public servants who protect our health, monitor disease outbreaks, and conduct the research that saves lives. Firing them weakens our national security and undermines public health. Over the weekend, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention sent out roughly 1,300 termination notices, only to have to rehire half of them after they realized what they had done. That's the kind of whiplash effect that represents a deep managerial failure and leaves the nation less prepared for the next public health emergency. Even some members of Congress are starting to see the harm. Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, seems to be the only congressional Republican realizing that the Rising Affordable Care Act premiums will hit rural and lower income areas just as much as they'll hit places like Montgomery County. Not extending healthcare premiums is going to hurt people regardless of who they voted for or what party they're in. As of last Friday, every federal worker outside of the military has missed a paycheck. We encourage those impacted to use the county's network of food pantries and community resources, which are ready to help anyone who needs it. I also want to thank our residents who continue to donate food, money, and their time to help their neighbors get through this. Montgomery County's strength has always come from the way our community takes care of one another. Last week, we opened the Mobilized Montgomery Federal Workforce Career Center, the first of its kind in the country, to help displaced federal employees find new opportunities and navigate this uncertainty. Since last week's press event, we had 114 federal workers sign up for services. You can learn more by visiting mobilizemontgomery.com and following the prompts to schedule an appointment for support. Last week, the Trump administration engaged in a mass firing of data workers at HHS, further crippling that agency. Trump understands perfectly well that killing the collection of data makes it hard to explain what problems exist and what is needed to address them. It is totally consistent with his attacks on research at NIH, the FDA, the Weather Service, and climate change offices in the federal government. It's the president's way of cutting Americans off from the truth, enabling him to lie at will while making it impossible to generate data that would undermine his claims. He is deliberately blinding government agencies, and that extends to local governments that rely on some of this data so that they can't inform the public and policymakers about the repercussions of their actions. When questions are asked like, why aren't we protecting the well-being of our people, there will be no answers available. I guess his theory is that if you can't see it, then the problem doesn't exist. This is no way to govern. The focus of my media briefing this week was on the drastic cuts to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and what they could mean when the shutdown is over. I've written our congressional delegation detailing some of the impacts of the cuts in order to help them advocate for protecting HUD funding. The money helps keep vulnerable people in their homes and strengthens our community. The funding allows us to partner with nonprofits to support and house residents with special needs who've experienced homelessness. Without financial support through HUD, these essential services would suddenly stop for hundreds of persons with disabilities in our county. The HUD Continuum of Care grants support numerous programs administered by our Services to End and Prevent Homelessness, which is part of our Health and Human Services Department. Those funds help community partners and landlords. Our county has done extraordinary work in planning and initiating a strategic response to homelessness, but without HUD money, it's more of an aspiration, not an action plan. People experiencing homelessness in our community deserve better from the federal government. The president's threatening to condition grants on passing legislation to outlaw camping outside or sleeping on the streets. We would love to be able to provide decent shelter space to people who need it. Cutting off funding makes it even more difficult to address homelessness. It makes it even harder to get people off the streets. In addition, Politico reported that HUD is considering cutting 70% of Continuum of Care funding for permanent housing, which provides stable housing for people with disabilities. As a county, we work every day to ensure that all people, including the most vulnerable, have a safe, stable, and affordable place to call home, which is why the threat of losing federal housing funds from HUD is so concerning. What is also really concerning about this is the equation of people with disabilities with people receiving privileged treatment, as if they're getting something that no one else gets and they shouldn't get that. To not understand the condition of people with disabilities and to act like helping them is giving them an unwarranted hand up is bizarre and kind of cruel. Hundreds of the most vulnerable people in Montgomery County would be forced back into homelessness if these funds are cut. Christine Hong leads the County Services Stand and Prevent Homelessness program within the county's Department of Health and Human Services. I asked her to weigh in on the impact of these cuts, talk about how many people would be immediately impacted.
I am very concerned about the possibility of federal cuts to our HUD funding. That funding supports 757 people who are currently in housing who experienced homelessness. And without that, if we receive a huge cut, starting in January, those people will be forced out of their housing, and we may see an increase in unsheltered homelessness. This impacts also our landlords because they rely on that funding for revenue in terms of rent. It would also impact our businesses. A large increase in unsheltered homelessness impacts our entire community.
Also under attack is an arm of HUD, the Office of Fair Housing. That office has been under attack since the administration took over. Work on behalf of single mothers, the disabled, and minority tenants denied housing has been severely impacted by many firings and reassignments of lawyers within the department who worked on fair housing complaints. A whistleblower's report earlier this year focused on the Office of Fair Housing, which shed light on how staff within the office went from 31 to 11, and staff attorneys have been slashed from 22 to 6. Over the last 5 years, HUD has collected between $4 to $8 million in legal settlements for Americans who accused housing providers of discrimination. In contrast, from January to July 2025, less than $200,000 was collected. Trump appointees running HUD have ignored historic legal findings that helped end redlining practices and have dismissed landmark housing discrimination cases as artificial, arbitrary, and unnecessary. As they wrote in one of their memos reported by the New York Times, the cases are not a priority of this administration. In fact, Trump's grudge can be traced back to the 1970s when he and his father were sued for government violations of the Fair Housing Act. Black people were told there were no units available for rent in Trump-owned buildings, while white prospective tenants got those apartments. It gives you an idea of where his policies come from. He doesn't believe in fair housing personally, and he's using his opportunity now to change federal policy. We all deserve better. Millions of Americans nationwide already face barriers to housing, so cementing these changes at the top will embolden bad actors. Enforcement of the Fair Housing Act is going extinct, and that breeds discrimination and allows intimidation to be used against families in vulnerable positions. It is yet another battle we must fight to keep this free and fair. I want to respond to this week's news from MCPS regarding their capital improvement needs. Superintendent Taylor requested $2.7 billion, $949 million more than the last approved capital improvements program, to address the needs of the district that have been put on the back burner for far too long. The ask is 54% larger than the last approved CIP budget, and it translates to almost $160 million a year over 6 years. And even with that increase, he reports that it does not cover the entire backlog. They are dealing with years of the school system not laying out their needs, complicated by the lack of funding of capital projects at the county level that could have kept them from falling further behind. Not requesting money when it was needed was not a good policy, but I'm glad that we're starting to at least get real numbers from the school system. As a teacher for 17 years, I'm well aware of the importance of maintaining our schools and the passion that parents and teachers have in making sure that those repairs are quickly made. Doing nothing leads to further deterioration of impacted schools, and we can't afford to let that happen. So how we manage this is one of my prime concerns right now. The path forward involves increasing our capital spending caps, which have shrunk dramatically in purchasing power over the years because of inflation. Additionally, the numbers have also shrunk. There used to be as much as $340 million in capital funding each year when I was on the council. That amount was reduced to $280 million a year. The chart below shows how the funding should have been increased each year just to keep up with inflation. Over my 7 years as executive, that's $420 million that otherwise could have been available for needed capital projects. Schools, rec facilities, libraries, public safety improvements, and transportation projects have been delayed as a result. Recently, the County Council approved a cap of $300 million of borrowing, which is $40 million less than I requested, or $240 million less over the next 6 years. While the Council stated they're willing to revisit this limit early next year, it just makes it more difficult now as we finalize our capital budget. This is a problem that we must work on together to solve. I look forward to discussing these issues with council members, school leaders, and the public to find the best solution. We simply can't continue to kick the can down the road and allow our situation to get worse. This week I joined the Montgomery County Council in recognizing October as Fire Prevention Month. Preventing fires from starting is the best way to keep our community safe and avoid property damage as well as human casualties. Our Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service works to protect over 1 million residents. Under the leadership of Chief Corey Smedley, it is committed to encouraging a prevention-first approach. Educating the public and encouraging preventative actions are two key ways that are embedded in that approach. This year's focus is on lithium batteries because if they're not handled properly, they pose a serious fire risk. Lithium battery fires are much hotter and much more difficult to put out. It's important to check and make sure the batteries are working without overheating. We are trying to increase awareness because of the extraordinary fire hazard that exists. This month, we're also asking every family to ensure they have current, up-to-date, and working smoke alarms. If a smoke alarm is over 10 years old, please replace it. That's not just advice, it's the law. Family escape plans should also be made and practiced. MCFRS provides complimentary home safety visits for residents who need help in developing an escape plan. Residents can call 311 to schedule an appointment or visit MCFRS online. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is fueling the second annual The Park Goes Pink event at Wheaton Regional Park on Saturday, October 18th. Education is critical to identifying cancer early and setting up the best chance of survival. It is important to know how to screen and monitor for breast cancer, which can be done through clinical breast examinations by a healthcare provider, annual mammograms, and self-examination. Every year, breast cancer accounts for about 30% of all new cancer cases in the United States. And African American women in our county face a 40% higher mortality rate from breast cancer and frequently receive diagnoses at later stages of development. That is why our African American Health Program works to eliminate health disparities through key efforts including cancer prevention education and outreach, as well as providing free screenings and referrals. I urge everyone to show their solidarity with Black women and everyone impacted by this disease. Join us for The Park Goes Pink on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Let's advocate for equitable care and improved health outcomes for every resident. Wear pink and participate. October is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. The county continues to operate a crisis hotline, which is available 24/7 for victims of domestic violence and to help them report abuse. The number is 240-777-4000. We're committed to helping those in need. Our Family Justice Center near the courthouse in Rockville is free to use and information is provided in every language. Services include counseling, legal advice, career assistance, and help with basic needs. It's also a safe place to meet with police detectives or staff from the state's attorney's office to help anyone, including those seeking to file criminal charges. I want to take a moment to honor the valuable contributions and achievements of Italian immigrants and their descendants. This is Italian American Heritage Month, a yearly designation celebrated across the country. It allows us to acknowledge the journey of millions of Italian immigrants who reached our shores in search of a better life, often facing discrimination and hardship there and here as well. They are essential to our social fabric, producing politicians, artists, and leaders within our broader communities. The Italian Cultural Society, based in Bethesda and in place since 1953, helps recent immigrants with language classes and provides a sense of home in their new home in Montgomery County. The Order of the Sons of Italy in America predates World War I and helped fight for the inclusion of Italians in our public school system. That's kind of hard to believe you had to fight for that. Their history in America parallels the experience of most other immigrants who didn't come from England. They faced discrimination, prejudice, segregation, and obstacles to employment. America is a country of immigrants, and the reality is that the experience of many immigrants from many countries is not unlike the discrimination faced by our most recent immigrants. This country has a long history of absorbing immigrants in our past and seeing them become Americans. In a time when we're seeing the demonization of people who are following the same path that our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents took, we should remember that we've successfully integrated many cultures into this country before. As we've grown into this most diverse jurisdiction in the nation, Italian Americans have been part of that evolution. The Montgomery College Library is a good resource for those interested in materials documenting the immigrant experience. Their Celebrate and Connect tab can connect you to nearby resources to help you dive deeper into Italian American history and culture. I hope younger people see this as an opportunity to connect with their roots and for the wider society to appreciate Italian American traditions, art, and food this month and throughout the year. This week also marks the end of Hispanic Heritage Month, something the county is proud to acknowledge and to celebrate. This year, we redirect money that would normally pay for a community celebration into school-based cultural programs and events. This was not meant as a slight against families who wanted to attend to the businesses that benefit from the large gatherings. There's a lot of fear within the Hispanic community at the moment because of the federal immigration activity. We're proud to be home to multiple generations of immigrants across Latin America. Hispanics are a critical and vibrant part of every neighborhood. They're also an important part of our workforce and economy. But since President Trump has taken office, we've seen a decrease in participation in community events among Hispanic residents. That was one of the things on my mind last week as I toured Hispanic-owned businesses. My first stop was a Peak Personal Training facility owned by and operated by Kevin Munoz. He went from our local high school soccer fields to playing at Montgomery College before starting his own business and then setting up a gym in Gaithersburg. There are 6 trainers on staff and a good client list, but he admits his business has been impacted by federal job losses. I stayed in Gaithersburg and met Ada Pineda, owner of Minutemen Press. Screen printing continues to evolve since the business first opened, and even since she bought the business 7 years ago. She reminded me that this is also Women in Business Month. The county resources available for small minority and women and veteran-owned businesses is there. There are opportunities to do business in Montgomery County through the Minority, Female, and Disabled Business Program. Initiatives and community partnerships help provide access to resources, counseling, specialized workshops, and loan programs to help women entrepreneurs start, grow, and scale their businesses. Finally, I went down the road to La Casita Pupuseria and met with the managing partner, Iris Veronica Jimenez. I told her how I remember the location as a local favorite sandwich shop. Roy's Sandwiches used to be there. They made the biggest sandwiches I ever saw. This rebrand is impressive though. A lot of work has been put into meeting the needs of the community and building a strong brand that connects with its customers and expanding it from its beginnings in Silver Spring more than 20 years ago. I want to thank everyone for the time they gave to me and my staff during our visits. It's wonderful to see businesses thrive in our community. The best way to do that is to serve their needs and make doing business in Montgomery County as easy as possible. That's the feedback I got during my first day on the job as county executive, and I haven't forgotten it. We're also approaching a very important day for the South Asian community that calls Montgomery County home. Monday, October 20 is Diwali. one of the most popular holidays in India. Diwali signifies the beginning of a new year and symbolizes the victory of light over darkness. Many people marking the holiday will be dressed in colorful traditional clothing. They may light lamps outside their homes, gather to enjoy large feasts, and exchange gifts. I want to thank the people of Hindu, Jain, Sikh, and Muslim faiths who invited me to the opening of their beautiful temple last year in Potomac. It shows how comfortable the community is here, and we're thankful for the many contributions to Montgomery County. I'm looking forward to the county's Diwali celebration on Wednesday, November 5th, here at the Leggett Executive Office Building in Rockville. So that's a wrap for today. I hope you're all hanging in there. I know this is not getting any easier. I do hope you have a great weekend, and I'll be back again soon.